Louise Bak.
Marty and all of you for, taking part in this, because I know that these things are not easy in these COVID times. And I thought I would just share something about because I remember there was a time when, well, actually very earlier on, I went to see my dermatologist. And he basically said that, unless I, wore the mask, throughout the thing, he just wouldn't look at me. And the thing is, when you enter that space, they measure your fever, not once, they measure it again and again, and at each time there was no fever. and I know I've gone to Chinatown often and they measure the fever too. And I just know that in some cases, you just wonder, if this world, because when I've talked to these Chinese merchants in Chinatown, they've often told me that, they always have to wear the mask and even the face shield because people are frightened to go to these Chinese restaurants on the basis that somehow we are the carriers of disease. And I know that that neighborhood has been very adversely affected because a lot of those places have been, closed on some level. And when I wrote this piece, it was actually done because the CDC had asked me to think about SARS at that time, and how I think that, we're still very much dealing with these things. It's called dim sum, meet and vanish. My tongue touches inexpertly beneath a dumpling, and adrenaline moves down my stomach. The effect of my blinking as I chew it slowly is intentionally calm, fondling the flatness of a napkin and smiling dopily. I add convincing smiles on the front page photo of Chinese celebrities eating the dim sum in view of TV cameras to show Toronto safe. With sketchbook momentum, I open my eyes and see the unfocused shine of a metal counter, while somebody's gloved hand adjusts the bend of a cat's knee. The waitress dons a mask, and her immobilism makes monstrous her movements. She glances at my empty plate and begins to slide the empty furniture arrangement toward the cramped and the uneasy. I lean across the table to stretch out the last pouring of tea, smiling slyly as she approaches the half-lit pot, wiping at the sides of my neck and examining the rusty stains across my fingernails, and she stops dead in her tracks. I try to work up a fevered standing pool around myself. Really, I think I should sit down over here. She braces herself against herself as I let out a single cough before quieting again. She makes Horlicks in the kitchen in a nicely pointless way. What am I, a gas stirrer? She mutters in a low tone. Her face is lovely in an unfamiliar way and almost grave. I raise my arms and set my hands at the back of my head as somebody enters, complaining about unbearable pains in his feet and blaming it on the Chinese, while another sets down her cat with a shingly mask. She tries out a coy stagger and we laugh. The couple yells for tofu buns that are on the cheap menu with fast dibs at the last of the soy sauce. She turns up the gas and places my fingers beneath her jaw. I can't understand the kind of time her blood is keeping. something. Because being in this co-op is very much near this neighborhood, and I always feel grateful for being in this space too. And being, this building is very near Chinatown, where I spent, a lot of my early years in Toronto. It's called this silent and lotus posture under the maple tree. Buddha's bodhi sprouting in my body. 3 branches dip down like the Triskelion, rising and setting to the rhythm of the serpent that slides between the dust pant of the whales, the tympani of the gorillas, and low whispers of human voices, ingrained in every truncheon, annular ring, and paracolored torn leaf tangle. Mongolian Kumai meditators crawl from the cardboard box, thrown into the crusher by 2 garbage collectors across the street. The grumbling trucks jowls close on another piece of fish fin in Chinatown's Great Wall of refuse, rebuilt every day, who mutter by grocers, field sitters, and solitary women, who mutter about the properties of marriages that rely on temerity and laconic lies to survive. I overhear a bruised neighbor call it pain redress, while another names it pleonasm, desire inescapable, as they slowly circle half-blood menstrual flower, relocated narcosis and promise. I try to piece together the confusing sounds sweeping back and forth before me. A woman pushing a stroller stops, telling me how strange it is to move so far to Canada and still end up in the Namib Desert. Nothing. My hypochondriac souls go panicked at feelings of isolation in a folded city, growing with each anesthetic moan. I remember Aqua, my grandmother, telling me not to mistake resuscitated breathing for mere CPR. Like the time she was scared when a giant grouper swam up beside her. Her pectoral fins the same size as her lotus hooks. Scarred, hook she listened for as a child. My great-grandmother had 3-inch, feet bound. I see her again, weaving through a loud mass of Chinese cyclists, thumbing tinny hand barbells, touching or knocking strangers down with shoulder pole loads. She stops and takes my hand as I move from the tree, making the noise of the grouper, opening its mouth, exposing rows of gill rakers. Cleaner shrimp and wrasses listen. Listen for a yawn in the carnivore's mouth. Listen, a signal to enter. My brother actually came earlier in the week and brought this, headpiece because it actually has a connection to my mom in the past. When she basically, my brother basically sold their family restaurant that was in the world for like 48 years. And this headpiece was in the counter of the restaurant. And now it's not there, it's a medical clinic. So on many levels, and I'm so grateful he brought it anyway, just because it has that memory. And I thought, because of the redness of it, this is called Red Riding Hood. She swears, they hide, which basically kind of means like fat cunt, not to follow her, even with her sway, unappeasably varying and close. The disbudded is a beaker or mock flower, abraded with weight attained uniformly, tilting it out thrust against the railing, trudging down to the bottom of the stairs, to a snippy pile of rutland smocks, reclined out of the burned-up heap's stage cake, flailing her hand with the walls this much for the light switch unfound. She braces on the hum of the squat meat freezer, on top of which the monogrammed butter pat of a shield is self-nibbled, where the Chatura Swift was in descent. She upsizes the share line to the shifting panoply of wiggly eyes, uncrossing her thighs and uncrossing her ankles. The space between her legs half clusters the chenille stems, some still laying on long sides of felt for the riding hoods, floppily shunting over the bracts as she skips at the flowering still, taking the singly pointing crimson hood at the lot near the ancient gym bank, using the horse mount steps, a concentrate of Beaver as she flattens on the newer section, bringing her hands down as if to stop the padding. She wraps herself tighter to it with demonetize the blows and the whir of the green, half dark, as she's leant forward on the upper cut bag, carrying capital feed of production, exchange or value, profits with the capital managed while the cake secured with miniature forest button holds. The disconnected from the real economy, with a stepping charily out of onto the rug, as if disturbing the trouser cuffs. The gunge leg might escape as the box of softener sheets falls. She shrinks back in. I thought I'd just do one more. It's called Shang Shang. This is about an actress who lived in Shanghai during the 20s when the city had a lot of interesting, well, I would say fashion shapes as well, because it's called Paris of the East. But there was an actress that basically committed suicide at the age of 25, mostly because of the dynamics of shame that were around her. In this world of many people, I think my heart is made from hexagonal islands of glass. No two heartbeats ever the same. They are all irregular. All my dreams are seeing her body quiver with the frisson of happiness, a sensation she never dreamed could be hers in life, when she was alone, knowing that all kinds of people could open the door and walk in. In fact, this was what the screen was all about, a place to dismantle a life. All that remained, a pile of fabric gestures, and a place to play voyeur to herself. Before a 3 a.m. wake-up call, she watched peony snowflakes melting on the coaster of a fairy tale temple, some undecipherable English words written on it, thinking her life was somehow happy enough, being called a modern Korean or modern woman, lucky to have moved to Shanghai in 1935, a city they call the capital of the tycoon, Paris of the East, but mostly core of Asia. Asia, her name on a trod-upon newspaper, since that night when we first held her hostage to the whims of the press and money. Money for her persona time, filled with longing for the inkfish and yellow croaker, creatures she released from the book, which did not tell her that what she freely gave would cost her in the end of the movie when they whisper, shame. Shame on the electric shadows of women on the silver screen who hum in lost voices, punctuating pleasure in the nebula of a ballroom out of the frame. Shame on the overhead shot where woman is the center of a blooming flower, can never finish her song about the wild goose that comes with letters in its claws. Shame. Shame on the woman who showed us how to love like the drone of a hive as it begins to swarm to the inner horizon, where a part of her orb remains intact, no matter how unclothed she is, on sale. For hours I have stood outside, below Roncaille's moon, too afraid to ask you for a song. My ear is still sore from pressing hard on history's suicide door, where the note you left is posted. Gossip is a fearful thing. It funnels us into the spectred mouth, which spaces threats under the skin, nasty body parts, handling parts, my body this, my body that, child whore, bot whore. And it seems wrong to hear curses or sensations I have never felt, or misshadow the color of my soul over the mirrored dissolves I express on streets named after small madnesses. I am accompanied by the long hum I heard as a baby, where every part of my body was protected through imaging and wrath. Keep away from her navel, it is the morning star. Keep away from her teeth, they will bite you. Keep away from her lotus now, it opens a lifetime. Now shame still tries to turn any face into a laughing death mask and imprint sadness on every nerve branch that tries to trust the collapse and valence of love. Love that sounds like the willful quiet for rain, a revelation.